Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military with Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 11th of November of 2025. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the situation on the ground. During the previous 24 hours we received lots of very interesting changes. First let's talk about the western Zaporozhye direction, where the Russians continue the siege of the settlement of Stepnogorsk. According to information we have, the Russians cut supply and support of this region. We have lots of videos of how Russians were bombing and attacking positions of the armed forces of Ukraine in this area. The Ukrainians used to have logistics from the north. They were trying to bring additional reinforcements and reserves along M18 road, but currently the Ukrainians are not able to do this because this road is under complete Russian FPV drone control, which means that within days, maybe even weeks, maybe days, the Ukrainians would be completely exhausted on the territory of Stepnogorsk and they would be forced to fall back from this area. For example, in this video we can see how Russians were controlling the sky above the settlement of Vasilyanka, and when the Russians discovered the vehicle of the armed forces of Ukraine, they attacked this vehicle and destroyed it. So this episode took place exactly in this area of the settlement of Vasilyanka. So if we calculate the distance, then we will see that the distance between possible positions of the armed forces of the Russian Federation to the south of Stepnogorsk and the territory around the area of Vasilyanka is more than 10 kilometers. So Russians control this huge territory, and this is already a kill zone for the armed forces of Ukraine. In this video we can see how Russians managed to discover positions of the armed forces of Ukraine in the area of the settlement of Novouspenovka. So this is an artillery position of the armed forces of Ukraine, but when Russians discovered this artillery position, they destroyed it immediately with FPV drones. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation on the eastern Zaporozhye flank, where the Russians continue advancing in the direction of the city by the name of Gulay-Polye, and it seems that the Russians will get the settlement of Gulay-Polye much faster than we previously supposed. So this is the current situation on the ground. Let's discuss everything in details, and first let's talk about the situation by the end of the 8th of November of 2025. So this is exactly the beginning of the Gulay-Polye offensive operation. This is exactly the moment when the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to secure completely the settlement of Novouspenovka and the Novouspenovka fortified area. The Russians needed just a day for regrouping, and right after this the Russians began advancing. And starting from the 9th of November of 2025 we've been adjusting the map almost every single day. So this is the situation by the end of the 9th of November of 2025, this is the situation by the end of the 10th of November of 2025, and this is the situation by the end of the 11th of November. So yesterday the Russians secured the settlement of Salotka and the settlement of Novo. We had a video about that, and today the Russians published another report, and according to this video, as a result of offensive operation, the group of forces east managed to establish complete control over the settlement by the name of Novouspenovka. So here we can see lots of episodes of how Russians were attacking this territory, of how Russians were exactly creating the situation on the ground, and in the final part of this video we can see Russians that raised the Russian flag. So this is exactly the place where the Russians raised their flag, and based on this video and based on the report of the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation, we have adjusted the map. So as you can see, the Ukrainians are no longer able to hold their lines. Another day brings another settlement taken by Russians, and this is not the worst thing for Ukrainians. The worst thing is that the Russians just today captured the settlement of Novouspenovka, and today pro-Ukrainian sources adjusted the map as if the Russians managed to improve their position so significantly that Russians entered the settlements of Rovnopolye and Yablukova from the east. So this update on the map was provided by pro-Ukrainian source. So according to this report, the Russians managed to take under complete control of this stronghold, this dense network of the fortifications. Furthermore, as you can see, the pro-Ukrainian source adjusts the gray zone in this area. As you can see, this gray zone is very huge, so we understand what pro-Ukrainian sources call as a gray zone for Russians is the territory under the their control. So this is the situation. The Russians began clashes for the final defense belt be in front of the city of Gulay-Polye, and as soon as the Russians are able to establish complete control over the territory, and we believe that Russians will be able to do this probably by the end of this week, then Russians will begin offensive operation in the direction of the city of Gulay-Polye. Telling the truth, a month ago I thought that the battle for the city of Gulay-Polye would start or would be finished somewhere in January or in February of 2026, but now, according to the current situation, according to the current pace of Russian offensive, I believe that the battle for Gulay-Polye could be finished even before the end of November. So before the end of November, so within the next 90 days, so 19 days, so which means this is going to be a very fast battle without any resistance from the Ukrainian side. Today, pro-Ukrainian sources reported that due to the complicated situation along the line of combat contact, the Ukrainian military authorities ordered to withdraw positions and to retreat towards the city of Gulay-Polye and towards this defense belt. So this information, as you can see, was confirmed by pro-Ukrainian sources, and they decided not to hide this, let's say, situation on the ground. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the city of Pokrovsk. During the previous 24 hours, we received a lot of very interesting updates, and they are very important. As for the city of Pokrovsk, we have three important videos, three videos that describes the current situation on the ground. So, for example, this video we have already discussed. We discussed this video during the previous, let's say, report. And here we can see hundreds of Russians that were entering the city of Pokrovsk from the southern part. I would like to remind you that when I saw this episode for the first time, first of all, I thought about one famous Hollywood film. So this is probably something like this. The Russians are entering the city of Pokrovsk. I would like to remind you that Syrsky stated that there are just 300 soldiers on the territory of the Pokrovsk agglomeration, but when talking just about this episode, I believe that we can find up to 100 soldiers entering. So which means that if we suppose that every single part, or at least several parts of the city of Pokrovsk have the same amounts of soldiers for the same square kilometers, then we might say, and we can say, probably we will be completely correct, that currently there are already several thousands of Russian soldiers on the territory of the city of Pokrovsk. And this is exactly what the commander-in-chief of the armored forces of Ukraine was talking about when he was talking about final maneuver. The Russian army is preparing a final maneuver in Pokrovsk to seize the entire Donetsk region, according to Ukraine armored forces commander-in-chief Syrsky. The situation on the front lines is truly tense. The enemy, the Russians, he meant, is conducting a strategic offensive operation. They have amassed most of their forces, creating an advantage in their attempts to break through our defenses line and seize this area. So Syrsky stated that there are around 150,000 soldiers around the city of Pokrovsk, and the most important thing that, as you can see, Syrsky called this situation not like the current maneuver. He is saying he's calling this as a final maneuver, which means that when Russians will mass their forces, will concentrate a critical mass on the territory of Pokrovsk, the Russians will begin their major offensive operation in the northern direction. And if we take a look at this northern direction, we will not see let's say a city or a town as like Pokrovsk. The nearest city that is almost the same as Pokrovsk is the city of Pavlograd, which is located very far from the current line of combat contact. We can see here just hundreds of small villages and towns that Russians would be able to establish control over within the next probably within days, maybe weeks, but not obviously years. So after the fall of Pokrovsk, this is the final maneuver that Syrsky is talking about, the Russians will begin moving much faster. The Russians will be able to install or establish additional infrastructure on the territory of Pokrovsk. The Russians will be able to bring additional, probably different types of equipment, headquarters, production zones, service centers, and Ukrainians will have nothing. And that's why Russians will be able to establish FPV drone bases, hospitals. So huge infrastructure could be raised on the territory of the Pokrovsk agglomeration, and Ukrainians will lose this infrastructure. So this is the first important video that was published by Russians. The second video was published by Ukrainian sources, this one, and here we can see how Ukrainians were attacking or counter-attacking Russians in the southern part of the city of Rodinska. Novouspenovka. Here we can see a Ukrainian tank that was geolocated right exactly at this point. Ukrainian tank was attacking this building. This is the building that was attacked by Ukrainian tank. And the most important thing is that this video was published today by pro-Ukrainian sources, and that Ukrainians reported that this video is fresh, that this episode took place yesterday on the day before yesterday, so very fresh episode. So they're trying to tell us that Ukrainians, as a result of counter-offensive operation, managed almost to restore complete control over the settlement by the name of Rodinskaya. But later, several pro-Western centers managed to probably analyze this video, and they came to conclusion that this video dated to probably 7th of October, so more than a month ago. So the Russians are saying that when talking about fresh satellite pictures, this building was already reduced to ruins, and this building was reduced to ruins around 7th of October of 2025, which means that Ukrainian tank, when he was attacking this building, was attacking the building almost a month ago, which means that this is a not fresh video, and which means that most likely the city of Rodinskaya is still under complete control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. Based on this report, during this morning we adjusted this part of Rodinskaya as a gray zone because this video was published without deep analysis, but now we believe that this video is old, and we will readjust the map back in Russian favor. And the third and probably the most important video was published from the southern part of the city of Mirnograd. So this is the video I'm talking about. Here we can see how Russians were first, after withdrawing and attacking Ukrainian soldiers across the city of Mirnograd with dozens of drones. So they were attacking Ukrainian soldiers and so on. They were attacking Ukrainian positions. And in the second part of this video, we can see a lot of statements, and let's say not statements, we can see how Russians managed to capture conversation between Ukrainians on the territory of Mirnograd and Ukrainian commanders. And they were talking about very simple things. The Ukrainian soldiers on the ground were asking them for evacuation. And if they can't provide evacuation, then Ukrainian authorities, military authorities, should provide them with water, with food, with ammo, with arms, and so on. And this Ukrainian soldier who was located on the territory of Mirnograd stated that during the next week he ate just probably some cookies or something like this, and just 40 grams of cookies, so for 1 week. So they don't have water, they don't have food, they don't have anything, and they are in these conditions for more than a week. So of course, due to the fact that the Russians managed to capture this conversation, managed to probably understand what exactly has happened there, the Russians began spreading these papers, these lists suggesting Ukrainians to surrender. So this episode, when Russians were dropping different applications, lists, was geolocated. This is exactly the place. So I believe you can recognize this building, this park. This is the building and this is the park. And the Russians started dropping this list suggesting Ukrainians to surrender exactly from the territory of the Mirnograd southern citadel. So we have lots of episodes, lots of drones flying above this area. The Russians provided a very clear instruction what Ukrainians should do if they want to survive, if they want to save their lives. And in the third part of this video, we can see Ukrainians, lots of Ukrainians that began surrendering. And this is a very important thing. Just a second, let's wait when this episode will finish. Let's wait a bit. And this is the moment. This is a first convoy of Ukrainians that surrendered. The Russians are saying that today from the territory of the city of Mirnograd surrendered up to 25 soldiers. And this is a very important piece of news because this is probably the first episode, probably since the end of the battle for the city of Mariupol, when up to 25 soldiers surrendered at one moment. So the Ukrainians, this is not the first time when Ukrainians surrendered during 2025. It's a normal process, but usually when somebody surrenders, people surrender, let's say, in 2, 3, or 4 soldiers, and that's it. But when talking about massive surrendering, this is the first episode, at least in 2025, and maybe for the entire 2024. The last time when I saw 25 soldiers surrendered at the same time was during the end of the battle of the city of Mariupol. So this is the situation, and this is a very, very warning bell to Ukrainians and to Zelensky and to Syrsky, because we need to understand that this is the first step. When everybody from the Pokrovsk and Mirnograd agglomeration will understand that there is no threat to their lives, that nobody is going to harm you, nobody is going to probably do anything bad with you, of course, we're going to see more and more cases, more and more events when Ukrainians will surrender without showing any resistance. And this is exactly what Putin needs. This is exactly what the Russians need. They need pictures with hundreds of Ukrainians surrendered at the same time. Furthermore, we got another video published from pro-Russian sources. Here we can see the same convoy. We will not watch that video due to, you understand what, they were very, very exhausted Ukrainians, wounded Ukrainians. So we have two videos of the same convoy, of the same column of Ukrainians that surrendered today, and the number of them is more than 25. And this is the situation. So tomorrow we believe we're going to see more and more episodes of this type, because Ukrainians, first of all, these Ukrainians who surrendered today, first of all, they will be forced to say the same thing, to tell the same thing to their soldiers, to Ukrainian soldiers in the northern part, that they need to surrender, that there is no danger. And of course, this will be like a principle of domino, like a chain. Of course, this will bring at the end a significant results to Russians. Hundreds of Ukrainians will surrender, and everybody in the world will see this. And this is exactly what Russians need. So this is the situation in the area of the city of Pokrovsk. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the city of Kupiansk and in the northern part of the northern Kupiansk direction. During the previous 24 hours, as you can see, we've made significant changes. So this is the situation on the ground by the end of the 10th of November of 2025, and this is the situation by the end of the 11th of November of 2025. As you can see, we have colored completely the eastern part of the city of Kupiansk. Today we received several updates from this area. The first one was this one, official video published by the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation, where we can see that that's commander of one of the, let's say, detachments made a statement, a report about the situation. The Russian army in Kupiansk has taken control of an oil depot on the eastern outskirts of Kupiansk, the Alinova railway station, and the eastern arrival park. This was reported by the commander of the assault detachment of the 1486 Motorized Rifle Regiment of the West Group, called Sign Lovets. So this is the situation. This is the first statement. A few hours later, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation reported that the near village of Kupiansk in the Kharkiv region, assault units of the 6th Army continue to destroy the encircled Ukrainian armed forces. The eastern part of the city has been completely taken. So the Russians today reported that the eastern part of the city of Kupiansk was completely captured by the armed forces of the Russian Federation. So when summarizing everything, during the first video, this soldier reported that they managed to capture 3 points. The first one is the railway station Alinova, the second one the eastern arrival park. So this is exactly the Alinova railway station that was captured by Russians. This is oil refinery in the eastern part. This is also was reported during this report. And also these soldiers stated that Russians managed to establish complete control over the eastern park, and this is exactly this area. So as for this part, we haven't adjusted anything because it's very difficult to understand how exactly Russians managed to get there. But when summarizing everything, and if we believe everything that was reported by that soldier, something like this was already captured by the armed forces of the Russian Federation by the end of the 11th of November of 2025. So it seems that the city of Kupiansk is about to be taken by Russians completely and secured. It seems that in coming days, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation will confirm and will report that both the city of Pokrovsk and the city of Kupiansk were completely captured by the armed forces of the Russian Federation. Furthermore, I would like to remind you that according to the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation, there are still very heavy clashes for the settlements of Petropavlovka and Kurilovka, but these villages are still under control of Ukraine, maybe partial control. Anyway, when summarizing everything, we can see that Russians created another cauldron for the armed forces of Ukraine, and this time this is not like clear, let's say, a classic Kupiansk cauldron. This is, first of all, a cauldron for Kucherevka, Podoly, so for this part, Petropavlovka, for these fields and so on. So this is the situation in this area. The Ukrainians are losing the ground. Furthermore, during the previous 24 hours, they made lots of attempts to escape this encirclement in this cauldron, but the Russians established complete control over the river crossings, and everybody who tried to escape this area was attacked and destroyed by the armed forces of the Russian Federation, by FPV drone drone operators, so no chances to escape this squadron. We believe that after the end of the battle for Pokrovsk, Ukrainians will start surrendering in this area as well. In this video, for example, we can see how Ukrainians were trying to build some river crossings, some let's say boats, but Russians destroyed every single one of them with FPV drones. So disaster, disaster, and nothing except disaster. So this is the situation, and this is the reality of the end of the special military operation, of the end of 2025, and we need to understand that 2026 is going to be much worse in comparison with this one if nothing changes. And that's it for today. Military with Samurai channel reminds you to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.